So you want to know more about engaging a loved one with dementia in activities, huh?
It's a great question, and it's awesome that you're looking for ways to make their lives better.
Yeah, definitely.
And luckily, you've given us some really cool resources to kind of dig into. So let's unpack all this and see what we can learn.
Sounds good.
Okay, so what really stood out to you when you were looking through all this?
Well, one thing that really jumped out at me from that guide is the focus away from just keeping someone busy,
Yeah.
just to fill the time, but to actually like nurturing their well-being. It really emphasizes how activities can be such a powerful tool
Right.
for boosting self-esteem and for keeping that sense of purpose.
Yeah, it's so easy to fall into that trap of just trying to fill the time, but you're right, it really is about it's absolutely
It's so much more than that. It's making them feel
exactly
valued and capable.
Exactly. And the guide even goes into like practical ways to actually do that. For example, if your loved one, let's say, used to be a fantastic cook, maybe just involving them in simple meal prep tasks
Right.
could bring back some of that sense of pride,
Absolutely.
Or if they were always like a sharp dresser, maybe having them sort laundry or help choose outfits, could tap into that. It's all about finding those connections, like you're saying, to their past and present strengths.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's not just about the activity itself. It's about how it connects to their identity and
Right.
makes them feel good. And the guide also stresses the importance of focusing on like enjoyment and inclusion rather than like perfection.
Absolutely. It even gives this example of like, you could discreetly go back and fix a not quite perfect table setting later.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a good reminder that it's the process and the feeling of being involved that actually matters more than that end result.
Totally. A friend of mine who cares for her mom actually shared a similar story with me. She used to get so frustrated when her mom couldn't fold towels perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
And then she realized how much her mom actually enjoyed the activity itself. So now she just kind of lets her mom fold to her heart's content and just focuses on the joy it brings her.
That's great. It sounds like your friend really understands the whole, adapting expectations thing.
Yeah.
Which is another really crucial theme that runs through both of these resources, actually. They both emphasize how important it is to tailor activities to the individual's needs and abilities.
Right.
Especially as dementia progresses.
Exactly, because dementia isn't a one-size-fits-all experience.
Absolutely not, no.
And speaking of adapting, the guide actually breaks down the stages of dementia and how they might impact activity choices, which I thought was super helpful.
Yeah, I agree. It is good to have at least a basic understanding of those stages.
Yeah.
So that you can choose activities that are both engaging and appropriate.
Right.
For instance, like in the early stages, someone might still be able to enjoy more complex activities like gardening or playing board games.
Yeah.
But then, as the disease progresses, simpler activities like maybe sorting objects or even just listening to music might be more suitable.
And the guide even gives you specific questions to consider when choosing activities, like what were their hobbies? What do they enjoy now? Are there any sensory sensitivities we need to be aware of?
Those questions are so valuable.
Yeah.
They really encourage you to think deeply about the individual and what's going to bring them the most joy and engagement.
For sure. And the guide also talks about making adaptations to familiar activities. It gives this example of swapping a heavy vacuum cleaner for a lightweight sweeper.
Yeah.
That I thought was really smart.
That's a great one.
Yeah, it's about finding ways to make things accessible and enjoyable without sacrificing that sense of participation.
Right. And, even small adaptations can make a huge difference.
Totally.
And that at-home activities booklet, it actually highlights this beautifully with its focus on sensory activities. For someone in the later stages of dementia, something as simple as a hand massage with lavender oil or create scent cards with familiar aromas can be incredibly stimulating and comforting.
It's amazing how powerful those senses can be, especially when other forms of communication get more challenging.
Oh, absolutely.
And it reminds me of another point that the booklet makes about the importance of music.
Yes, music.
Yes.
Music is such a powerful tool for people with dementia.
Totally.
It can evoke memories, it can soothe anxiety, it can even, help promote physical activity. The activities info guide, it even mentions using music for chair exercises, which is a great way to get the body moving and the mind engaged,
I love that.
Yeah.
I bet there are tons of resources online now.
I'm sure there are.
To find chair exercise routines set
like
to
it.
different types of music. It's all about adapting those healthy habits, right, to fit their needs and preferences.
You're absolutely right. There are so many creative ways to bring music into the daily routine. You could play their favorite songs while they're doing chores,
Yeah.
have a sing-along session, even just put on some calming music in the background,
Yeah.
just to create a more relaxing atmosphere.
It's like music becomes this universal language
Right.
that can connect with them, even when, words might be difficult.
Exactly.
And the booklet actually mentions a specific example of this. Arthur, the musical teddy bear.
Oh, yeah. Arthur.
Yeah.
He's a great example of how something, seemingly simple can provide so much comfort and sensory stimulation. Just imagine, that feeling of cuddling up with a soft, furry friend that also plays familiar tunes.
That's so heartwarming. It really does emphasize that it's not just about the grand gestures.
Right.
It's about those small, thoughtful touches.
Absolutely. And both of these resources are really clear that the way you approach activities is just as important as the activities themselves.
Yeah.
They really emphasize, being patient, offering encouragement, and really avoiding any kind of criticism.
Yeah.
It's about creating this positive and supportive environment where your loved one feels safe to try new things
Right.
and express themselves freely.
It's about nurturing that connection, right? And showing them that you're there for them no matter what.
Exactly.
And I think that kind of leads us perfectly into our next topic, which is that balance between routine and variety, right?
I'm glad you brought that up. That balance is so crucial for creating a sense of stability and well-being for someone with dementia.
It is.
Yeah.
And the activities info guide actually offers some really practical advice on creating daily routines
Yeah.
that incorporate both familiar activities and opportunities for new experiences.
Yeah. I'm excited to dig into that.
It's a great starting point, yeah, for thinking about how to structure their day in a way that feels both comfortable and engaging.
Right. I'm eager to dive into those routine suggestions and see how we can make them even more personalized and
Yeah.
enjoyable. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Okay. So the activities info guide, it suggests breaking the day down into manageable chunks, right?
Uh-huh.
Focusing on things like personal care, meal times, household tasks,
Right.
and leisure activities. It even gives specific examples,
Like-
starting the day with some gentle stretching,
Mm-hmm.
then going into breakfast, and then maybe some light chores like folding laundry or sweeping.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Having that structure probably creates a sense of predictability
Right.
and security, which could be so important.
Absolutely. Exactly. And even within that structure, there's still tons of room for flexibility and personalization.
Right.
So for example, instead of just, folding laundry, think about how you could make that activity more engaging, Maybe put on some music they love or reminisce about past laundry days.
Yeah.
Remember when you used to hang clothes on the line?
Oh, I love that. Turning a mundane task into a moment of connection.
Right.
And it reminds me of something else the guide talks about, that importance of exercise.
Oh, absolutely. Even if your loved one, has some mobility limitations,
Right.
there are still so many ways to incorporate physical activity into their routine.
Yeah.
The guide mentions chair exercises set to music,
Yeah.
which is a fantastic option.
I bet you can even find videos online,
Oh, sure.
that demonstrate specific exercises and maybe even cater to different fitness levels.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are so many resources out there these days. It's all about finding what works for the person,
Right. Exactly.
And speaking of unique needs, the guide also encourages us to think outside the box when it comes to activity choices.
Okay, so it's not just about sticking to those traditional activities like puzzles or crafts.
No, not at all. It's about exploring their interests
Mhm.
and finding those creative ways to engage them. So, for example, if your loved one always loved gardening,
Yeah.
maybe creating a mini indoor herb garden
Oh, yeah.
would be a great option.
I love that idea.
They could help plant the seeds, water the herbs,
Yeah.
and even just enjoy the feeling of smelling and touching the plants.
Oh, I can just picture that. A little windowsill garden filled with fragrant basil
Right.
and rosemary. And it's not just about the activity. It's about that sense of accomplishment and purpose,
I
right?
got it. It's about fostering that sense of competence, no matter how big or small.
Totally. And the at-home activities booklet takes that even further with its focus on those sensory activities.
Oh, yeah.
It suggests hand massages with lavender oil, or creating scent cards with familiar aromas,
Right.
or even using a weighted blanket
Yeah.
for calming sensory input.
Those are such great examples. And it really highlights how important it is to adapt those activities based on the stage of dementia.
Right.
So, in the later stages, when verbal communication might be more difficult,
Yeah.
these sensory experiences can be such a powerful way to connect and just bring comfort.
And the booklet even mentions some commercially available sensory activities like twiddle muffs
Oh, yeah.
and fidget widget toolkits.
Right.
Had you heard of those?
I have, yeah.
I hadn't, but they sound fascinating.
They're really neat. They're designed to provide that tactile stimulation, and they can be really helpful for people with dementia who tend to fidget or pick at their clothes, things like that.
Right.
So twiddle muffs, they're like these knitted or crocheted hand warmers with all sorts of textures and little attachments sewn on.
Okay.
And then the fidget widget toolkits, those offer a variety of small objects with different textures and shapes and sounds to explore.
It's amazing how something so simple can provide that comfort and engagement.
It really is.
It really shows that there's just no one-size-fits-all approach.
Absolutely not, no.
It's about finding those individual sparks of joy.
Exactly. And speaking of sparks of joy, we can't forget about the power of music.
Music is truly magical, you're right. It can transport us back in time,
It can.
evoke those emotions, create a sense of shared experience.
Yeah. And for people with dementia, music can be especially powerful.
Yeah.
The activities info guide, it mentions using music for chair exercises, but it can be used for so much more than that. You could play their favorite songs from their younger years, have a sing-along session, or even just like I said earlier, put on some calming music in the background just to create a relaxing atmosphere.
I remember reading a study about how music can actually help stimulate memories
Oh, wow.
and even improve communication in people with dementia. It's like it unlocks something in their brain.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and allows them to connect in a way that words sometimes can't.
I love that. That's a great point. And the at-home activities booklet also highlights the power of music with Arthur, right?
Yeah.
Musical teddy bear. Remember him?
Yes, our cuddly companion who plays the tune.
Exactly. It might seem simple, but having that soft, comforting presence that also provides that auditory stimulation, it can be so beneficial. And it
Yeah.
all comes back to that personalization, right?
It does. It really does. Finding those unique things that bring joy.
Exactly.
And both of these resources emphasize that it's not just about the activity, but the way you approach it, right?
Oh, for sure.
They talk about patience, encouragement,
Yeah.
creating a positive and supportive environment.
That is crucial. It's about remembering that your loved one is still the same person they always were, even if they're experiencing some challenges with memory and cognition.
And cherishing those moments of connection, no matter how small.
Exactly.
A shared smile, a moment of reminiscing.
Absolutely.
These are all victories.
As we kind of wrap up our deep dive into these resources, I think that's a beautiful message to carry with us. Every moment of connection is a gift.
So true. Now, let's bring this back to you, the listener. What activities come to mind for your loved one as you're going through all this?
Yeah.
What sparks your interest? Maybe even triggered a happy memory.
Right, exactly. Maybe it was that idea of the mini indoor herb garden, knowing how much they love to be outside,
Right, yeah.
and tending to plants and things. Or maybe it was that suggestion about using music for chair exercises,
Yeah.
picturing them tapping their toes and just, smiling along to their favorite tunes.
And remember, it's about tailoring that activity, right, to their interests and abilities.
Yeah.
So if they were an avid reader, maybe you could try reading aloud to them,
Yeah,
even if it's just a short story
absolutely.
or a few poems.
And don't underestimate the power of just, spending quality time together.
Oh, for sure.
Engaging in conversation, looking through photo albums, just reminiscing about shared experiences.
Yeah.
Sometimes those are the most meaningful.
Yeah, those simple things. We've talked a lot about the practical tips and adaptations, but how can you infuse those activities with even more joy and connection?
That's a great question. It's about thinking about that person's personality and what makes them light up,
Yeah.
Maybe it's adding a touch of humor to the activity, sharing a funny anecdote,
Yeah.
just engaging in some playful banter, right?
Yeah.
Laughter is such a powerful connector, and it's a mood booster for sure.
It is. And don't forget about physical touch too.
Oh, absolutely.
A gentle hand massage,
Yeah.
a warm hug, even just holding their hand
Right?
can convey so much.
Those small gestures, they speak volumes, especially when verbal communication becomes more challenging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they really do. So as you're, starting to think about, like, finding these engaging activities for your loved one with dementia, approach it with, like, a sense of creativity,
Yes.
compassion,
Absolutely.
and a deep understanding of their needs.
Exactly. And never underestimate the power of your presence and connection.
Yeah.
Even as dementia progresses, that capacity for joy and meaningful interaction, it's still there.
It really is.
Yeah.
And by embracing these opportunities for engagement, you're not only enriching their life,
Right.
but also your own.
Absolutely.
It's a journey, right?
It is.
Filled with challenges,
Wait,
but also those moments of, like, profound beauty and connection.
We hope that this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and a renewed sense of hope as you navigate this path,
Yeah.
And just remember, you're not alone. There are so many resources and support systems available to help you along the way.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.